Hi, I'm your host, Marlo Lemon, and you're listening to Wild Voice, the podcast where I take this voice of mine and share my wild journey with you. Being widowed at 34 with a 15-month-old, most would see as life ending. And instead, I alchemized it and put life back together, and it became more beautiful and fulfilling than I could have ever imagined. Through this life shift of mine, I realized who I am and what I'm here to do. I'm an intuitive energy healer, and sharing how I view the world is how I help you upgrade your life and alchemize your journey into magic. From day one, I wanted to share my journey, call it intuition, but I knew it was going to do more good out in the world than keeping it to myself. So when I say I've mastered life, that doesn't mean I'm perfect or that life is. I mean, I've mastered the concept of life, and I want to share that with you. Hello, everyone. So today's episode is going to be with Nicky Moriarty. He's an intuitive energy healer, spiritual teacher, host of his own podcast, and more importantly, on this wild ride of life, aligning with what that soul of his wants to do. I really admire his way to give quick little snippets of wisdom in his social media posts that are easily digestible, and I want to bring that to you. He's also living this free-spirited adventure and traveler lifestyle, and I think that is admirable and fun to learn about. I know he's musically oriented and is passionate about expressing through music. The more I learned about him as I was preparing for this interview, I got the opportunity to find out he has been raised with this sort of thinking and spirituality his whole life, but still had his own journey to get him to where he is today. So I wanted to chat with him today about a handful of things in life I think he can bring some really great insight and perspective to. I find it fascinating to see how we all view this world and to find the things we have in common and the things we are drawn to in one another. So let's get right into it. Ladies and gentlemen, Nicky Moriarty. Nicky, hi.
How are you? It's so good to see you.
I know. It's so good to see you, to finally virtually meet each other, right?
I know. How epic. This is like the digital era, so this kind of makes sense in a way.
I know, right? It's normal now. Like with Soul Fam and stuff, you just know each other from afar, but sometimes don't ever meet in person.
Exactly. And, this is probably not like the first time we've met, like actually,
Right. Like in another life. Yeah.
Exactly. So it's just like, hey, what's up? How are you?
Yeah. It's been a while. Nice to see you again.
You too. How's this life treating you?
Oh, yeah. This life is treating me good. It's nice to bring me back to this full circle moment, right? Where you get to connect on fun stuff like this. So I'm doing good. How about you?
Totally. Well, congratulations on having a podcast. That's a big deal. It's kind of like just having a podcast is a big deal. Like starting it is like the hardest part, but once you get it going, it's like,
totally. And you know what that's like. I listened to some of your episodes last night before I went to bed, just because I like to learn more about people before I jump on with them. And they're just awesome. I just love how they're off the cuff and you just are sharing what you share. And I just think so. Congratulations to you too.
Oh my gosh. Well, thank you so much. Yeah, it's been fun. It's been really fun.
Gosh. Well, before we get into it, the thing that really I'm curious to know about, I know you're just like this traveler, this adventurer. I don't know if that's always been how you've been, but right now that's kind of the stage of life that you're in. And where are you right now? Like, where are you in the country? I know you're in the US, but where are you?
Yeah. So right now I'm in San Diego. Now, by the way, can you hear chickens in the background?
I can't, but I hope to.
Okay, well, good. No, it's like super loud here. And I'm like, oh my God. Right. So
no, not yet.
Okay, good. Yeah, let me know if you hear them. I'll see if, yeah. So right now I'm at my aunt and uncle's house, my cousin's house. And I'm in San Diego. My brother also lives here. So yeah, I've been traveling the country for like a little over 6 months now. Just traveling. Really, I was in a meditation and I kind of asked where is it in my highest good to live?
Yeah.
8-9 months ago. And I heard travel, and through the meditation, I heard what kind of car to buy, which was a Jeep. So I got a Jeep, and I've just been throughout the summer and traveling all throughout the US, going to different states, national parks, national forest. And right now I'm in San Diego, and it's pretty sweet here. And again, it's cool because my brother's here and I have family here. So I'm using my aunt's office for this epic podcast.
Oh, I love it. Well, that's so fun. Because where were you right before this? Because I know you've been a handful of
Yeah.
places.
So before this, I was in Texas.
Okay.
Yes.
What'd you think of Texas?
Texas is really cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was really cool. It was like a ton of land. I was actually staying with, do you know Allie?
I have never gotten the chance to meet her, but I know her through like GLH, just knowing of her.
Perfect. Yeah, through
Yeah.
guided healing. Yeah. So
Uh-huh.
she lives out in Texas with her boyfriend. They have a
Oh,
ton of
nice.
land and live in this beautiful home. And so I was staying with them for a couple of weeks. And it was really, really
Cool.
cool because I mean it was kind of like a little sanctuary,
Yeah.
which made it really fun. It was kind of like a spiritual retreat. So
Nice.
yeah, Texas is super cool.
Oh, that's
And
awesome.
you said you've never been?
I've been once, I've been to Texas. It was really quick. It was like I was in and out, and I think I was in Fort Worth. I think
Okay.
it was like real quick in and out for like a quick trip. So I didn't really get to enjoy it or spend time. It
Right.
was like another lifetime ago. I think it was like over 10 something years ago. So
Got it. Okay.
but I do know of it, and I have wanted to go to Austin because I hear that that's a pretty fun place in
I've heard that
Texas.
as well. Yeah, I was gonna go there, it just didn't end up working out, but I've heard Austin's like really,
Yeah.
really cool.
Yeah. But you mentioned chicken. So speaking of, my son doesn't have school today. So you might hear a chicken squawking come through the door. So if anyone
Okay,
hears that,
perfect. We're
that's
even.
that's him. Yeah. So you have actual chickens. I have like a little 6-year-old chicken. So if you see him pop in, that's what that is. But I really wanted to talk today because I follow you on Instagram, and I just love and admire the way that you can take these like little snippets of like wisdom and really like make them these like digestible little reels, is how it is on Instagram, but these little like videos. Because I am known, anyone who knows me, like I normally can't like really be real precise with the message I'm trying to get across. So I really admire that, how you get these points across. So I wanted to ask you and see like, what is one of them, because you have so many, that you would say is like the biggest with your spiritual awakening and your shift into kind of how you live life now? What is like the one like snippet or wisdom piece that like resonated with you so much? And maybe it's one you've shared recently. It doesn't have to be, but what is the one that like just really resonated with you? Because I feel like it would benefit all of us to know whatever that was that kind of put you on this path.
Well, that's a really great question. I feel like, well, there's a couple different ones. There's two that are sticking out, and I'll just stick with one of them. One of them is this idea like that we are not our thoughts, and
Mm-hmm.
especially the ones of negativity, fear, doubt, worry.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember when I kind of had this epiphany, this moment of going, oh my gosh, we have a higher self that is
Mm-hmm.
an expression of source, meaning whoever's listening feels we come from, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And that we don't have to succumb or be this persona of who we think we are, and we can align more with our soul. And by soul, I mean this unconditionally loving core self that is the higher self. And we
Mm-hmm.
can be anyone that the soul desires to be.
Yeah.
And for a lot of my life, I was kind of living based on who I thought I should be, kind of succumbing to negative thoughts, succumbing to my own fears, and really believing in these program beliefs within my mind that didn't represent the truth. And when I had this kind of awakening moment, which was in high school when I was 16, everything in my life transformed. Like my social life, every single thing transformed because I was practicing observing my thoughts instead of identifying with them, allowing them to be there, not trying to force them away, not trying to resist them, judge myself for having them, but just being aware that they are simply thoughts, and we can allow them to pass like a cloud or a passing car. And I think that's the message that I enjoy sharing a lot with so many people, because I know a lot of people can resonate with feeling trapped within the chaos of their own minds, because our minds are wildly powerful. I mean, they're absorbing all of the opinions and negativity and fear, doubt of the outside world. But we all have this stream of love within us. And when we connect with that, I feel like that's when the life experience becomes what it is designed to be. And that's when we really step into our power and change our lives from this empowering place. And I could go on and on and on, but I think you get the point.
Yeah.
I'm like, how do I end this? And
Yeah. No, I love that, because that's
yeah.
like what you're touching on is kind of, I've been playing with the idea of, as we know, like emotions and emotional mastery. That's kind of, how we kind of pick something that we kind of play with
Mhm.
and real life integrate and stuff, just as spiritual healers and teachers, our own life becomes like our playground. So I can totally relate, like you said, feeling that feeling of almost like wanting to run from yourself. And it is a very, until you even are, sometimes we don't even know that that's happening. And so it's kind of that feeling of, I don't know what's wrong, but I feel like something's off. And a lot of us aren't taught to be like, hey, you're not broken if you have a weird thought or you're stressed or you have this really intense emotion, like you said, clouds, or they move through just like emotions. I kind of think of them like waves, like they come and they can't, some of them get really big and then they crash down. And like, so I can totally relate to that because that's something I've been trying to teach my son. And what the nice part is about what we kind of how we look at the world is it's to teach a 6-year old those things is almost having to really take it back and like strip it apart and really
Mhm.
get clear on what those things mean. So I love that, reference and what you're talking about, because I feel like getting an idea of who we are on a soul level and not kind of playing against ourselves is something that none of us have ever really been taught. And it happens innately just with like culture and
Yeah.
people around us. I see it with my son. So he's only 6. So I'm like, oh, I could see where if we're not taught this and like redirected, that it very quickly can like snowball into this like these certain ways of viewing ourselves that then it's like it's a lot of work to unpack. It's possible, but it's just a lot more work to kind of work backwards once you've kind of hit. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I mean, I think that it's incredible that you have this son and that has you as a mentor and a leader at such a young age.
Thank
And that's
you.
you have this little light worker chicken running around, as you said.
Yeah, chicken.
But I just like that is what captures my mind. I think that is just so
Yeah.
wonderful that you get to you get to be this incredible leader in his life, and he gets to absorb all the knowledge that you're just emanating just by you being you. Because I know as kids we're really learning the most based on just what we're observing in the world, and
Yeah.
so I think that's really really special.
Oh, thank
And
you.
do you kind of like see different changes within him based on spiritual practices that you apply or share with him?
Oh, absolutely. And the funny thing is
So cool.
I've talked with Al about this before because him and I have um, had a lot of sessions and obviously classes and stuff. And Nash being 6 now, I started with GLH and kind of just in this, my spiritual awakening happened about 5 years ago. So he was only about a year old. So when that happened, one of the times I like saw it play out and it kind of worked against me in a way. He was like pushing against me, like using the tools. And I'm like,
Yeah.
oh shit. And I was like, I remember texting Al and being like, you have helped me create a monster, an amazing, spiritual, intuitive monster. I have my work cut out for me now because I have created this human being to support him in a way to follow his intuition. So I get it now where I'll be like, we're going to go here. And he'll be like, intuitively, I don't feel like that's where I want to go right now. And I'm like,
No,
damn it.
that is so freaking funny. I
Yeah.
love that. And
Yeah.
I know Alessandro can relate because he's in a, has a child himself.
Yeah.
And so I'm sure
Exactly.
like you two can definitely connect on having these little intuitive monsters.
Oh yeah, and we've joked about it. He's like, he laughs and he's like, "I've created a monster." But the nice part is, and like I think you touched on it a little bit, is it I have to be on my A game. Like I have to continuously be learning. I have to really be rooted to what I teach him because if I teach him something that I just think is a good practice, but I'm not rooted to it myself. So like for example, saying positive things about himself and really pulling out the good and not focusing on the bad. If I'm not rooted to that and I have him do it, he comes back at me. So it forces me to really root to the things I'm teaching and to the
Mhm.
things I'm learning before I open my mouth, which is works great for sessions and the podcast, right? Because I really have to be on board before I open my mouth.
Totally, totally. I mean,
So,
first of all, just to be completely honest, like I have chills and my heart's so warm just hearing about this dynamic
mhm.
that you have with your son. I think it's so special that he's learning all of
Oh,
this at
thank
such a
you.
young age. And then the second thing, the first thing that popped in my mind when you asked me about like the one spiritual practice that
Mhm.
I really enjoy talking about, and it's going back to what you're sharing, is that life is all reflecting our energy. And so like all of life is it's a reflection of the energy that we're focused on and our well-being. And so
Absolutely.
the fact that you have that dynamic with your son is really awesome that you are each other's spiritual teachers in a sense.
Oh, well, thank you. Yes, we are definitely each other's teachers for life. I have a
Yeah.
teacher and a mirror for life. So it's been a lot of fun, also work at times. But the
Oh,
nice
I'm
part
sure.
is what people, I got the opportunity to teach him young, right? I wasn't necessarily working backwards very much. Doesn't mean I won't have those moments, but a lot of us know that those first like 7 years are so big for our intuition. And then after that, it tanks just because of the world that we live in and the way that it's
Right.
set up. And I
Right.
think a lot of us that are in this line of work are trying to change that, right? We're trying to
Mhm.
help bring awareness so that doesn't have to be the case.
Right.
But it's definitely been something that's, it bums me out when I see kids or even, teenagers that haven't had that opportunity. But like we know, anything can be shifted when
Yes.
that soul wants that growth and that learning and that, perspective, it'll get it. It's just
Totally.
sometimes the timeline is a little different. But speaking of timelines, that was one of the things I wanted to ask you about because it's not something I've talked about much on the podcast yet. But I think it's like it's been coming up a lot for me, and I'd love to get your perspective on it. Timelines and this world and the way that we're human, right? But we also have this innate understanding of the spiritual and energetic aspect. Timelines are really dealt with here on like the human playing field, but they also are something that we pay attention to in the spiritual world just a little differently. And I think there's probably a little bit more fluidity. What is your definition, I guess, or your thought on timelines and how we see them here, kind of as we're trying to, let's say, if someone's like, well, yeah, I get all of this spirituality and being fluid. But what about when we want to make things happen? What about when we want to get to that, you know, certain vocation or career opportunity or family life? Like,
Mhm.
how do we have the balance of the timeline and also being open to just how the world, spiritually and
Right.
soul level?
How the world is moving, and
Yeah.
there is time in this reality in a sense. But
Right.
the cool thing is science says that time does not exist, and so in the
Yeah.
quantum realm, that's where endless possibilities exist. And so the more that we are focused on breath and observing our thoughts and focusing on self-love practices, exercising self-love practices, things of that nature,
Mhm.
that is where we is kind of the doorway to where everything is happening all at once. And so if someone desires to be on their optimal timeline in life, it's aligning with a lifestyle that is filled with love, happiness, and then that's where reflections definitely show up, right? The adversity shows
Yeah.
up within that. I kind of compare it to like surfing.
Mhm.
Like if you want to surf the bigger wave, there's going to be bigger obstacles, but also you'll grow the most,
Mhm.
you'll learn quick, and you'll be able to take on that adversity a little more. Like so if you're a surfer surfing the waves.
Mhm.
And so I think of our lives, if we desire more love in our lives and raise our vibration, we attract higher conscious souls and a higher conscious social environment and career and things of that nature. It's not that there won't be adversity and things of that nature, but your soul is growing to expand its perspectives and consciousness, aligning more with love. And again, that realm of love is where time is happening all at once. And so
Mhm.
you have access to your optimal timeline. And we begin aligning with that optimal timeline by simply beginning just observing it, identifying it. What does it look like? And we can't escape a timeline by trying to get out of the one that we're in. We have to
Mhm.
kind of accept the present moment. I always say, like, attracting the life that you desire begins by with gratitude for the present moment. And
Mhm.
that's the doorway to where you can kind of go where your soul desires. And it also gives you an opportunity to identify what your soul desires, because many times we have wants, and we think that we may want something that maybe the soul doesn't,
Mhm.
because we don't feel whole and complete in our own lives.
Mhm.
And so the moment we begin to feel whole and complete, then we have access to what the soul desires. I'm throwing a lot, but I hope some of this is
Oh,
sticking with
yeah.
your listeners.
No, that's definitely, and I really love the idea, and I think it'll resonate of knowing that it opens the energy up with that gratitude. Because a lot of people
Yeah.
think, if they want to lose weight or if they want to look a different way or, a different house, or they think that by having gratitude for what they have, that means they're accepting nothing more. And I think
Right.
a lot of people have this idea. And that's not the case. It's actually, we've been taught the opposite, right? We've been taught that focus on the negative to get what you want. And actually that just creates more of what we don't want. It's kind
Yeah.
of focusing on that gratitude and opening up that channel.
Yeah. And I say, like, you cannot lie to the universe. You can lie to your subconscious, but you can't lie to the universe. And so if you know, it's really about authentically finding a way to feel gratitude in any way that a person knows how to. And sometimes if I'm in a session with a client and they have a difficult time looking in a mirror and saying, I love my physical body, you know, I ask them, is there anything that you love about your physical body? Do you love that you can breathe? They're like, well, yeah, I guess. Start with that. You know, if you really focus on this, like that you can breathe, or if you have two hands, that you have two hands, that is a miracle. We are walking miracles every single day. And it's so easy to bypass that, take it for granted. But the more, I mean, I'm sure all your listeners have been in like this, this thought where they just leads them down more thoughts, and they're thinking, oh my gosh, we're in this wild universe. I'm in a body. Like, you can get there. You can get
oh, totally.
Place where, like, holy moly, what's happening? You know,
I know.
like, really trippy.
When you get to a point and you're like, oh my gosh, what is my name? You say your name. I was like, is this even my name? Like,
totally. And you realize how fascinating this is, and the odds of you being here on this planet. And if you can access that level of gratitude, you've just opened the doorway, to go back to your timeline question, to align with any timeline that your soul desires to be on.
That is so awesome. And that's so well said, because that gratitude, and I'm sure even people listening, because I can feel it when you start to talk about those things, it changes the energy. It like changes the way you feel. Like you just, it boosts that frequency. Right. And I've talked a little bit about frequency on here. Like relate that exactly to how you feel. Like your frequency is kind of go off a lot of how our feelings, not necessarily emotions, but that deep rooted feeling of like, an expansive feeling or like this restrictive feeling. So this is spot on. So I think that's really helpful for people to kind of just have another way to see this world. And it's like grains of sand, right? It's like, find the smallest thing, like you said, that you're breathing. There's a whole shit ton of people out there that have real hard time breathing. And, you know, there's people with health problems and not two hands. So like, it really makes you grateful for the things, and you step back out of this almost like this cloud. Like we said, like kind of, we get trapped in our own thoughts and this cloud, and step out and kind of see that big picture and how special we all are that we're here. And the other thing that I think might correlate well with this conversation is soul contracts. And that is something that I find super fascinating. And it kind of goes along with the timeline idea, because they go hand in hand, because actually, I want to get your perspective on soul contracts and kind of how that works with how we play out our life or our timeline. Because some people might say, okay, I get that I need to be grateful, but I did this and this and this, and I'm feeling expansive and this, but it still didn't happen. Or the way, and you brought it up, you know, we have this idea of what we think is best for us.
Right.
And we honestly, we know a lot. We also know nothing. Like
totally.
There's this other big, like, source, like we said, insert whatever you believe in, this higher power that's at play that is always looking out for our best interest. So what we think to our human self might be an awesome win is actually going to put us back on our spiritual path and our soul path by 10 years, let's say.
Well, that's beautiful. That perspective is beautiful. Not getting back on your soul path, but yeah. No, that is a beautiful perspective, because because everything has these equal level of positive aspects as they do negative aspects. And like what you said is so perfect, that even though something might feel like that you would think would be a celebration, is source, whatever it is you believe in, is protecting you to align you more with what you're actually asking for. But I didn't mean to interrupt you.
No, I was done. You should interrupt me. Like I said, I can go and go and go. So this is a perfect time. Go ahead, whatever you.
And so what's your question on soul contracts?
So the question is soul contracts and your perspective on them, and maybe giving a little bit of your understanding of them, because I haven't talked about them much on the podcast yet. And I find them so powerful. And so when we get that concept, it kind of makes us like let that white knuckle grip go a little bit and just be like, okay, like someone's watching out for me. It's not just up to me to like action to make stuff happen.
Yeah. So I would also love to hear your perspective on soul contracts. So
Yeah.
now my perspective is, the science will show us that energy is neither created nor destroyed. Your soul is energy. That means
Mhm.
your soul is always was and always is. And your soul, your body resides within your soul. And so to think that your soul has this intelligence, this high level of intelligence, and
Mhm.
maybe decided to be here on planet Earth at this time,
Mhm.
and kind of decided that it would sign a soul contract with maybe another soul or maybe an event to
Mhm.
align a soul with its soul purpose, kind of like a little bit of an obstacle course, like, oh, I'm going to attract this high vibration soul or not, that
Mhm.
is going to align me with, maybe the soul's like, I want to go to planet Earth and I want to learn about forgiveness.
Mhm.
And then another soul goes, you know what? I'm trying to learn this other lesson that ties in with forgiveness. We can create a soul contract. We'll be in each other's lives. You're
Yeah.
going to learn forgiveness. I'm going to learn how to love myself. It's going to be a perfect collaboration. You come down, maybe it's a parent that you have a difficult time with,
Mhm.
but it gives you this opportunity, this firsthand experience to really learn the depths of forgiveness like no one else has, because your experiences are special and unique. And now you've expanded your perspectives and your consciousness in a way that align more with your unconditionally loving soul self.
Mhm.
And you brought it here to this physical place, and it's aligning you with a life that your soul desires. Now, from your perspective, was that a lot of words, or did that kind of make sense?
That made a lot of sense to me. The nice part I like with podcasts is people can pause and go back and listen
Yeah.
again. So I always tell people if there's a lot, because there's some episodes I have short and some that are long, like you can always pause it and like take it in, absorb it, and go back and listen again. Because I've done that with my own sessions and my own healings that I've done. I'm like, okay, I got this. And then I listen back and I'm like, oh my God, I wasn't even like, I didn't even hear that when I listened to it the first time in the session.
Totally.
So yeah,
Totally.
it's a
Good
lot of
point.
words, but I'm right on point with you. Like I'm following you. We're on the same train. So, but if anyone feels like it's a lot, they always can just pause and listen back or let it sink in for a bit.
Yes, totally.
Um,
And
but yeah.
so a soul contract essentially, it's a soul's way of getting itself on its highest timeline,
Mhm.
its optimal timeline in life, I should say.
Mhm.
So what's your kind of perspective on soul contracts?
Well, I think why soul contracts are so fascinating to me is because I have all of us, once we understand them, we can kind of pinpoint where we've experienced those in our life or and we'll continue to, right? It's a constant.
Yes.
For me specifically, I got to actually see this and have to like learn it for myself when my life kind of turned upside down about 5 years ago. I really had to take a hard look and at the people in my life that were causing, in the sense of helping me align. They were these soul contracts, but sometimes they look like in our eyes like villains a little bit. And I think
Yes,
that's,
that's what I was touching. Yeah.
yeah. So, and I think when we can step back and still see them as us, like see like, oh, you're here to help me. Like
Mhm.
no matter how hurtful that was and how I felt with that or what that did or what I had to do to move through that, at the end, it's always in the best interest. And I think that some people might roll their eyes to that because people say, well, okay, it's that same idea of everything happens for a reason. And I think it's just more um, in depth than that when we can
Mhm.
explain specifics. And I think soul contracts is a way to do that so that before we come here in these physical bodies, our souls have been around the block and they decide, like you said. So, in my words, they decide what they want to experience or what they're ready for or what this next, you know, trip around the sun is for them. And you kind of almost like a meeting. I picture it like this meeting in like a boardroom and there's like these bunch of these different souls
Could
and they're
look
like,
like
yeah,
that. Yeah.
yeah, right. That's like kind of what I picture.
Totally.
Much like brighter and like
Yeah.
fun. I don't think boardrooms sound very like fun to be in, but this like that's the concept. And then I'm like, hey, oh, I need to learn that too. Cool, let's go together. Like we're gonna do that. It's a very, I picture those contract moments very unemotional and very love based, even though that's an emotion, but kind of like there isn't like a negative or a positive. It's just like, cool, yeah, let's do that. Like, and then we get here and we come into these bodies and we live out our life. And until we understand that that's happening, I think it tends to feel like life is just happening to us. And
Yeah.
once I got that understanding and I could look back and be like, oh my gosh, I had this soul contract with this person and this parent and this friend. And here at the time, I saw it as like, gosh, things are going shitty. Like, can I just get a break? Like,
Yeah.
can someone give me a break? And we can still have those human moments, which I still do knowing this stuff. But it just helps um, pull us back into moving through it instead of it kind of bringing us down. So I like the idea of soul contracts and the fact that it's just these people in our lives that are like our soulmates, because that's
Hmm.
kind of what a soul contract is. We're soulmates, and it doesn't have to be romantic. It's just our souls are here to learn stuff, and I need you and you need me. And we don't really have a say in who does what, you know. Sometimes there's just, these are the lessons we got to learn, and these are the people that are picked to do it. And just know that you had a say in it at some point. It just might not feel like that sometimes when we're living it out here.
Yeah, that's beautiful. I mean, I think if someone were to think of planet Earth as a school for souls to grow and evolve and
Yeah.
become conscious that we are the co-creators of our lives,
Mm-hmm.
soul contracts are essentially different ways that we experience more lessons and experience more of who we really are, different aspects of who we really are. And like you said so beautifully, sometimes that person that might seem like, and this is so big because it's so true and such a big deal, and I know so many people can resonate with this.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes that person that feels like the villain in your life,
Mm-hmm.
and you know this having intuition, you can look in intuitively and see that soul actually loves you the most.
Yeah.
And maybe before you were here, went, hey, I need to learn this lesson. You need to learn this. I love you so much. I love you so much. I might lower my vibration so
Mm-hmm.
you can learn what it's like to forgive. And we're
Mm-hmm.
going to go down, we're going to play these roles, and I'm going to be the villain in your life. You're going to really effing hate my guts,
Yeah.
to say it lightly, but
Uh-huh.
it's going to really create this rocket of desire and knowing, to know more about who you really are and
Yeah.
learn more about who you really are. It's like, I mean, any obstacle in our life gives us that opportunity to learn more about who we really are. And soul contracts are a way that we just kind of make sure that we're going to learn the lessons that the soul desires to learn. And I know anyone listening to this can point out someone in their life that has probably pissed them off. And sometimes soul contracts
Yeah.
are with high vibration people that you
Mm-hmm.
love and adore, and high vibration relationships. But it's all contributing to this evolution and this becoming aware of who we really are, because unconditional love is who we are. And if you feel like you really, 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 really hate someone, or they're like a villain in your life,
Mm-hmm.
that's your opportunity to fully expand your perspectives. Like, if you could love that person you really don't like,
Mm-hmm.
that's a way to experience more unconditional love,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like,
Mm-hmm.
if you can love that person and understand them, and that expands your, I always say love is understanding, like understanding someone to their core. And if
Yeah.
you can understand someone and something to their core, you've just evolved your soul. That raised your vibration. And now you're lining more with what you're asking for.
Absolutely. And I think it helps, like you said, with those timelines, right? We talked about timelines too. Soul contracts, if it's not happening, it's like soul contracts get like thrown in right and left
Yeah.
to make sure
Yeah.
that you get where you're meant to go. And I don't know if you've seen this movie, it like just popped into my head and I'm thinking about it. It's called Adjustment Bureau with
Okay.
Matt Damon.
No, but I will
It's
watch it.
well, it's older, but what I love about it is that if anyone's seen it or goes to watch it now, is it's this concept that there's this angel that looks human, it's in human form, that is helping this man, but he doesn't know it's, he kind of calls himself an angel. He kind of looks like a detective is how
Mm.
he is in this movie. And Matt Damon is this main character that wants this certain life, and that's not really what his soul is meant to have.
Really?
And so this
Right there.
guy, and he takes a bus to work every day, and he ends up missing something, and he gets on a different bus, and there's this girl there. I won't ruin the story, but what it ends up being is that him just missing this opportunity with work, or missing that bus, literally missing the bus, put him on a different path, is the one he meant to be on. But he was so upset that it like fucked with his career and all of this, but then what he didn't realize is it actually took him down. It like forced him on a different path because it had to, because he needed to be on this bus to meet her, to be able to continue his life the way it was meant to be.
Whoa.
So
That
it's
sounds
just
like,
pretty cool to see a movie like that. You don't see stuff like that. So it
what's the
was
name
nice
of
to
it?
see. Adjustment Bureau.
Okay, I'm gonna write that down because I've been on
Yeah.
kind of a movie kick, but that sounds like a high conscious.
Yeah. And I think it's on Netflix. It might, whatever it was, whenever I see it, I get like excited about it. Not like one that I need to watch over and over again, but just the concept. I'm like, oh, and it's like real people. It's not like they don't show, a cherub doing all of this. It's like, real people, but they're called angels or like, light workers and all of that. So
Yeah,
I think it's really good for us to know, and this would be a good starting conversation. We could talk about this all day, but I think this is a good kind of seed to plant for people to just kind of help them get out of their own way and kind of, you know, let life have a different understanding of it, and might feel like it kind of helps us feel like it's working in our favor more than we might think it's looking like on the surface.
totally. I totally
So,
agree. Yeah, sometimes the biggest obstacles in our life are the biggest blessings that we could ever ask
yeah.
for. And if we
Right.
just could see it from a bird's eye view through
Hmm.
source lens,
Hmm.
we would see that, oh, this thing is in fact happening for
Yeah.
us.
Yeah, absolutely. Like I think I had a session with Val once, and I've heard it so many times, but she had said something to me, and I've done an interview with her, so they'll know who she is. Um, where she was like, I think I was beating myself up about the way I handled something, knowing what I know and being like, I know better. Like, why didn't I use my tools? Like, why didn't I just frustrated human moment? And her saying like, hello, everything you do and don't do is source. Like you are source. There is not this big separation. Yes, there is this higher power and this support that you have, but that is also you. Like what you say and what you do and the way that you like live your life and the work that you do. She's like, it's just, you can't fuck it up. Like even if you think you fucked it up by
Right.
doing something in a human form, that's technically fucking up. Like she's like, that's not fucking up. Like
Yeah.
who decided what fucking up means? Like
Right.
who's the decider of that? If I
Yeah.
fuck up and put someone on their path, let's say, or I do something that upsets someone and then they go and find a new best friend that then is like their sole contract person,
Mhm.
like, hello, then I didn't technically fuck up, right? It was kind of more
Yeah.
emotions get involved there. And that's why I'm playing with emotional mastery right now. But yeah, so that was just something that I wanted to throw out there.
Yeah, that's a big deal. I mean, that's even just sparking a thing in my own brain going, oh yeah, it's so true. Like we are
Yeah.
we are an expression of source, and there
Yeah.
is no fucking up, there
Yeah.
really isn't. It's
Yeah.
all, one of the things that Alessandra shared with me that
Hmm.
was really beautiful and kind of along the lines of what you're sharing is that
Hmm.
you have this higher self, this soul
Hmm.
self
Hmm.
that is wildly intelligent. And he said, who do you think knows more, your brain or your higher self? When your higher self again is you, right?
Yeah.
So this isn't like an insult. It's just
Yeah.
what knows more. It's essentially your ego self or the higher self.
Yeah.
Like, don't you think that your higher self knew that you were going to make that quote unquote mistake that you thought that was derailing you
Yeah.
from your path? No,
Yeah.
there is all this padding. The soul knows exactly what potentials can happen when you do this. There's like no fucking up. Like you can't.
Hmm.
You
Yeah.
literally cannot fuck up as long
Yeah.
as no, you can't fuck up. Like you really
Yeah.
can't. I'm like, as
That's
long
just it.
as not, no, yeah, that's
Yeah.
it. Exactly. You,
Technically.
and yeah, you're not separate from source. Like
Yeah.
being separation is an illusion. It's an illusion
Yeah.
of the mind. Everything
Yeah.
is connected. And that, just that perspective for me is so freaking beautiful. And if you
Yeah.
really get into meditation and focus on breath and focus on the heart, you'll get into these places where you really begin to align with the perspective of source and go, oh my gosh, I'm not separate from
Yeah.
anything. And it's
Yeah.
so beautiful.
It is. And this is those moments when we could talk forever. And then all of a sudden we're like, wait, where am
Yeah.
I? What year is it? Like you
Yeah.
could totally go down these paths. But you brought up meditation, and um that's something that I have always, so like for me, well, actually, I want to get, what do you find is, or for clients, for meditation purposes, it could look different for anyone, right? The idea is to quiet the body and the mind, to be able
Yeah.
to allow intuition to come in, source information, to just chill out for a sec, like whatever your intention is with it. What do you find is the best way? Because for me, even I'll say I have a really hard, I cannot like get myself to like sit, like be like, okay, at this time, I'm going to go sit and do this. For some reason, in this stage of life I'm in, I don't stick with it. And then I beat myself up for the fact that I didn't stick with it because I knew it'd be helpful. So what I have found, and I want to get your thoughts on it, is I find the times that I naturally am clearing my mind and clearing my thoughts and making that intentional. So I'm this weirdo that has to shower before I go to bed. And I've always joked about it. And then just like a month ago, and I always have the clearest thoughts. I always come up with like what I want to talk about next on the podcast, the book. So then I was like, wait a minute. I was like, that's my meditation because it's something I do every day. It already naturally clears. It's like a clearing moment because Nash, my son, is asleep. Like there's normally all these things that have been set up naturally that just allows that opportunity. And so I stopped pushing and making it be what I visually see people doing, right? Sitting,
Right.
meditating, using sound bowls, which are all beautiful things. But if that's not working for me and I'm continuously pushing against it, I got to figure out what is my thing, at least for now. So I found that out to be mine. So that actually is like my channeling, like meditation time, because I can't, it's just how it works out. So with that long spiel, my question to you is meditation, what does that look like for you? And what do you tell people that have that problem? Like they're not clicking with the thing that's going to get them to do it or have that time.
Yeah, well, I think what you nailed it perfectly, because meditation is simply a practice of strengthening your relationship with refocusing. Because the
Mm-hmm.
mind focuses, they've discovered even in the most advanced meditators, their mind drifts, but
Mm-hmm.
they've strengthened their relationship with refocusing, focusing on that breath, focusing on whatever it might be, the heart center, whatever it may be. The
Mm-hmm.
shower, it gives you that opportunity to really be in that place of a focus, because you're
Mm-hmm.
you're in this place of all. I would imagine all of the kind of chaos within the mind begins to release. It's
Yeah.
that focus of the shower, the warm water, getting ready for bed, and then it's that opportunity. You're creating space for your source ideas. You're creating that
Mm-hmm.
space, and so for me, meditation is just that opportunity to create new neural pathways that are more aligned with source. And
Mm-hmm.
when we think a new thought or have a new experience, we're creating those new synaptic connections in the brain. And so meditation, whether it's in the shower, I mean, I encourage private clients, hey, if you're in your car driving, don't close your eyes.
Yeah.
Breath.
Yeah.
It's an opportunity to focus on your breath, lean in to the
Yeah.
adversity within your mind by
Mm-hmm.
observing your negative thoughts. And I think whether your meditation is traditional, you're in that traditional meditation pose, you're laying down, you're in the shower, you're on a walk. I've had this conversation with Val, which I'm sure you have as well, where
Mm-hmm.
her meditation, she pointed out what she calls movement meditation,
Mm-hmm.
meditating in a social environment. If you're with your
Mm-hmm.
friends, you're feeling overstimulated, perfect opportunity to meditate. And people might be hearing that and going, what?
Yeah.
Meditate? Yeah.
Yeah.
30 seconds of focusing on your breath
Yeah.
is meditation. It's practicing and strengthening your relationship with refocusing. What happens is
Mm-hmm.
the mind in those moments has this want, because of the ego's desire to protect you, to
Mm-hmm.
think about the negative aspect of your day, to think about the negative person, that whatever it may be. And the more you practice going back to focusing on your breath or your heart center or the warm water or just probably the aroma in the room and the feel and the vibe,
Mm-hmm.
whatever it may be, it could be the AC, right? You could focus on the AC. Or for me, if I'm driving in the rain, I'm listening to the rain.
Mm-hmm.
And so the more we strengthen the relationship with our focus, our happiness levels also elevate, because they've realized there's a correlation with happiness and focus, that the more we're focused, we're significantly more happy. And so it's when the mind is in this place of chaos that we are in that becomes our life expression, because all of life begins with thought. So if we're focused,
Mm-hmm.
it allows us to live a life that is expressed through focus in what it is that we love to do. And for you, you're saying you created that space within your mind to attract source ideas for your podcast, for your
Mm-hmm.
book, whatever it may be. And I'm the same way. Like when I lean into boredom, sometimes again, my meditation doesn't look traditional. It's just me going for a walk.
Yeah.
And there's this feeling maybe sometimes of boredom. And if I lean into that a little bit, give it another 5-10 minutes, I have just all of a sudden created this space for all these incredible ideas start coming. I'm writing them down in my phone notes. I'm trying
Mm-hmm.
to like get it all down, because
Mm-hmm.
that is where all of source resides, within the release of the chaos within the mind.
Oh, I love that. I think that's you explained it so perfectly because it gives people like a visual and an understanding of all these different ways. Because people say just breathe and meditate, and no one
Right.
knows like that's why intuition is so important, because then if I would have intuitively sat down with myself, which I never did until it was kind of forced upon me, and be like,
Yeah.
when is the best time for me to meditate? Okay, it's going to be at night. But I would have gotten to that answer instead of just kind of, but I eventually got to it. But I would have taken intuition and been like, okay, that might work for so and so, but that doesn't
Yeah.
work for me.
Right.
And that's because we all, again, are these individual souls, different journeys. Even if we're from the same family, in the same line of work, same friend group, it doesn't even matter. Like, we all still have these very individualized
Yes.
journeys and lessons and way to do things. And that's something I also have been working on teaching Nash, is that being different and doing things different is actually the most amazing thing we could do. Like, our family
Yes.
dynamic
I love
looking
that.
different, the way we do things being different is good, because the people that create things in this world and that do things, they're different. And a lot of the
Yeah.
times they're looked at as being weird and crazy, and until they come out the other side and people see with their eyes, right, of what's actually playing out, or what that actually created, being different and living a life in a different way. So I just find that fascinating to see that in real life, and get to play with it. So I think that meditation piece is an example of that, right? So people just do what feels right to you. And it could be,
Totally.
sometimes for me, it used to be, there was a time period, it was like working out, like
Hmm.
being at the gym and having like music in my headphones. Like, it was almost like the music was pushing out the chaos thoughts and allowing, almost like distracting the chaotic thoughts, while allowing the source information. And then that changed. That no
Yeah.
longer is that time anymore. Now it's the shower. So just know it evolves and changes like everything. But it is important to give ourselves that time. I notice when I don't intentionally notice that the days just kind of stockpile. So it is a nice little reset, even for
Yeah.
5 minutes.
The hard truth is that there could be someone that does the traditional meditation for an hour or two a day, and another
Mhm.
person that doesn't. And the person that doesn't could be living a more high vibration life
Yeah.
because they're applying their meditation in different ways, maybe that are more high conscious. It's not just
Yeah.
meditating 2 hours is going to change everything. It's
Yeah.
more the intention, the awareness, things of that nature. And really, yeah, I mean, yeah, because like if you're meditating 2 hours a day and then the rest of your day you're focused on negativity,
Right.
it's going to be,
Not going to work out so well.
yeah,
And or
exactly.
it will, right? Like we said, it will, but it might just take a little longer. That's what I have found, is, if
Yeah,
I could share that with anybody, is that you'll eventually get where you're meant to go,
yeah,
for sure.
totally.
100%. Even if, they don't listen to a single thing we say, and they do other things for the next 10 years, they'll eventually get to where they're meant to go.
Yeah,
It's just our intention is that by sharing these things, it helps people get there in a more effortless way and
totally.
in a more soul aligned way, which actually feels the best. Like, even if you're doing something, if it's more soul aligned, but it doesn't feel like right to what everyone else is doing, you just feel better. And that's really all that matters, is
Yeah.
how this life kind of feels to you, and your intention, right? The intention that you're here to make it a better place. And that starts with us being, and this actually just popped in my head. So with the little bit of time we have left, I'd love to get your thoughts on this, because last night, Nash was, because I teach him all sorts of things, right? And it's interesting to see how they mold and how he takes them and then kind of uses them or asks me. And a lot of the time they're very literal, which is hard with what we teach, because it's more abstract. And he said to me, um, you love me second. And I was like, I was like, okay. I was like, where are we going with this?
Yeah.
And he's like, because you love yourself first.
Mm.
And I was like, okay. And he's like, and I love you second because I love myself first. And I always tell him, like, we at night, our little moment is at night too, when I put him to bed, and I'll say to him that I love him, and he'll say that he loves me the most. And there was a time period where I'd say, you love you first, and then you love me, because it's most important to love yourself. And that allows you to love me the way you want to love me. And so we played with that a lot. And that was very like, what? Like when he was 3 and 4. And I think it was hard to grasp. And as he's understanding emotions and, jokes that he has a girlfriend at school, like he's starting to understand what feelings are and emotions. And he said that to me last night, and I was like, like, it felt so wrong. And I'm sure a lot of parents, it felt so wrong as a parent for me to say, you're right, I love you second. So I was trying to figure out a way, because second kind of sounds like there's someone before you, and that's technically right, but technically that's not the intention, right? So how I explained it to him in the brief moment, it was like 10 o'clock at night, so it was a short conversation, but I said, well, it's the reason behind it. And I said, I love me because that means I can love you the way you're meant to be loved and the way that I want to love you. And if I don't love me, then I can't take care of you very well. And that's most important to me. And then it was a lot of words. And I think he tends to kind of like short circuit and is like, okay, good night. Like
Yeah.
so, but I love your thought on it because it literally is something that I'm working through with him. And they're great questions because I'm like, okay, like how do we
Yeah.
get people to see that just because I love me first, because that's important, that I still love you, but you're not like second, like how we see it, but
Yeah.
technically, yes. So I'd love your thoughts if you have any on that, just because that actually is happening in real life. And
That is super interesting because, like you
yeah,
said, kids take things so literal. And so to
yeah,
have to really dissect and go, oh shit, okay. All
yeah,
right, give me a second.
yeah, right?
It's like you love him the most out of
Mhm.
anybody because you love you the most. Because there is
Oh,
no separation. There's
that's
only one.
good.
There's only source is one. So there is no second, third, fourth. There's only one. And
Oh,
you
that's
love
really
him
good.
number one because you love you number one.
Oh, that's really good because
Yeah.
he went down this rabbit hole of like, and then you love Nana and Pop Pop, which are my parents. You love them third then.
That's
And
so
then you
funny.
love this person fourth and
That
then
could be
fifth.
like, oh my God, do you share that on social media?
No, I haven't yet.
That's
Mm-mm.
hilarious. I mean, it's like,
But
because yeah, it's just really funny because kids do take things so literal and it's like this spiritual moment of like, oh shit, how do I deal with this? Like, okay.
right, right. But how you just described it is perfect because it encompasses a handful of things, right? That we're all one, we're all
Wrong
this
one.
on the same playing field. And if I love me, that means I love you the same. Like it's so that was actually an awesome way. And I'll have to whenever I try and go back and tell him things like after the moment has passed, he kind of looks at me with like a blank stare, almost like he was channeling too, like
Yeah.
intuitively in that moment. And then the moment was done. So then he's like, I have to wait till like the next time it comes up. But that was perfect because that to me resonates and feels like it would be a really easy thing to grasp. And the nice
Right.
part is if we can teach kids, we pretty much can teach adults because kids ask questions that some of us adults can't articulate. And we're thinking them the same way, just on a different like level, kind of,
Yeah.
right? So like someone thinking I need to go do this for myself so I can be a better partner for you. That might seem like that you're not a priority, but you're a priority because I'm a priority. So that was awesome. I think that
Yeah.
was
Yeah.
beautiful.
Like, yeah, you're the biggest priority in my life because I'm the biggest priority in my life. Like,
Yeah.
we start putting people second and third or fourth when we
Yeah.
start putting ourselves second and third and fourth. Well, like,
Yeah.
they'll experience it that way. Like, hey, why aren't you putting me first?
Right.
You feel like you're putting them first, but
Yeah.
it's backwards because again, everything is one. So when we're
Mhm.
giving ourselves that love we desire to give others, we can then be that one for whoever we desire to be that one for.
Yeah.
And it's, yeah, like you said about, communicating this information with children, like they're also so brutally honest where
Oh
maybe
yeah.
communicating something to someone that's an adult, they'll just go,
Yeah.
oh yeah, I know, I get it. But I feel like a kid's going to be like, so wait, I'm
Yeah.
second, I'm third. They're like, oh shit, I didn't think you'd ask that question.
Right.
It really has you dissect. And a lot of the time when I'm kind of doing my homework on different areas of spirituality or science, whatever it may be, I literally will type in like
Mhm.
quantum physics for kids because I
Oh,
want to
that's good.
understand the fundamentals and the foundation because it's difficult for me to understand all the stuff that's up here.
Yeah.
And so being able
That's
to
amazing.
communicate to a kid is you're right. Like you just kind of pointed that out to me. You will be able
Yeah.
to communicate it to someone that's you know,
Yeah.
along further along their journey in life if you can communicate something to a kid for them to get it. Can I
Oh,
ask you what it's
yeah.
like um, raising a child in a high conscious way and having a high conscious child? Like what is that like for you?
Oh man. So I'm a single parent and I've been a single parent. His dad passed away when he was about 15 months old. And so I don't know much different, right? So I started this spiritual journey um around when he was about 1. So
Wow.
so the interesting part to me is that like my soul gets that this is it. And then there's some human moments where I'm like, wait a minute, this isn't how the outside world does things. Like normally there's two people, right? But again, it
Yeah.
was soul contracts, right? So it's been a journey for me to just kind of grasp like, how do I do this? How do I give him
Wow.
everything? And I've had a lot of sessions and a lot of work that I've done. And I've realized that soul contract idea and this timeline. And I'm like, we both chose this path. And it's
Yeah.
because there's a lot of things I had to learn myself. And he was a big driving force of that because I wanted life to be different and him to learn things that I didn't learn so he can have a different opportunity in life and choices that he's going to make. So I very much had been just him and I like thick as thieves since day one, pretty much. And having to learn this along the way and then teach it, it wasn't as tough when he was like 2, 3, because it was almost like I was just living my life a certain way and he was seeing it.
Got
And
it.
I wasn't having to explain it a lot. And if I was explaining it, it was almost like I was talking at him because there wasn't a lot of like back and forth. So maybe he'd see me in the car doing like 10 things I love about myself, which we do on the drive to school now. We both do it. And that he would see me do these things almost just like an observer. And where it got a little bit more difficult is when he was about 4, 6 now, 4, 4 and 5, because I was having to parent him in a way where I gave him the freedom to be his own individual soul and self. And then at the same time, support his intuition. Then on the other foot, also be his like protector. And actually, there comes a point where I step in and actually, no, what I say goes because intuitively this isn't safe or intuitively, but that's a very fine line because I could go down that rabbit hole and be like, well, what's safe? If he learns a lesson and isn't harmed, then falling, off of something he shouldn't be on, okay, well, that he won't do it again. Like, so it's come into play and been a little bit more difficult in the stage he's in now in like the 5 and 6, because he challenges what I say. And I have to be really rooted to the things the way that I live my life. So I can't. So people who think that sometimes people are kind of, they don't walk the walk. They just say the things and don't live life. I for sure have to walk the walk because I have someone who comes back at me like it's almost like a bad Yelp review. Like if I do something and it isn't like fully rooted, I hear about it. Either he's difficult in a way that like pushes me, or I have to be like, wow, I need to go back to the drawing board because you brought up some good questions. So it's beautiful and magical. I would say those kind of last few years were tough, but I kind of feel like I'm getting into the stage now where I put in the heavy lifting. And I have this like intuitive feeling that when he's about like 7 or 8, it's really going to be a lot more smooth sailing because I've done the work to kind of set him up to be his own person. Of course, I'm still going to be his parent and all the traditional things, but in a long-winded way of answering your question, it's had so many different like moments, but it is harder to parent, I feel like, a little bit in the more conscious way, because it is much easier to be like, just don't do it because I said so, because I'm tired, because I don't want to deal with it. You know what I mean? But
Yeah.
instead, I have to be like, okay, well, how does that feel? Like, how intuitively, what is your body saying? Like, we do that with food. That's a big thing. Like when he wants to eat a bunch of candy.
Wow. I love that.
So it's like, but then he plays me sometimes and then he'll be like, well, my heart says that I want it. And my intuition says it might make my stomach hurt. So I was like, okay, well, which one are we going to go with? And he's like, well, I want it. I'm like, okay, let's go for it. See what happens. And then he feels sick later. So it's like,
No.
yeah. So
Wait,
I,
that's so cool. So he gets to
yeah,
experience firsthand, like a little science experiment,
for
his
sure.
intuition being accurate.
For sure. And then, but then
Whoa.
I think because of kids, they play with it a little more than
Yeah.
adults. So like he'll get sick a handful of times, right? Before he figures it out. And sometimes it's hard as a parent to not be like, I don't want to deal with you talking
Yeah.
to me about how you don't feel good.
No, it makes sense.
Because as an adult, we could be like, fine, make that decision. That's on you. But with a kid, it's still my problem. Like, you know what
Yeah,
I
it
mean?
is for
So,
sure.
so it is a tough way to parent. I also feel like it's very expansive, and I feel like it's very fulfilling and very almost like I'm putting in the heavy lifting to allow him to be the person he's meant to be, which also means I feel fulfilled and like it's just how it's supposed to be. But it is tough. It has beautiful, magical moments, and then there are moments I'm like, it would be so easy just to say, just because I said so, just
Yeah,
because I
just get
said
off
so.
that thing. Stop yelling and throwing your crayons. And, yeah.
Yeah.
No, I can imagine. By the way,
Yeah.
can you hear the chickens yet or no?
Let me see. Oh, I heard, was one like squawking a little bit?
Yeah. So I don't know if you saw me muted it because they're going wild as you're talking. That needs some confirmation, right?
Are they liking what I'm saying?
I think they are. I mean, they're going so loud, so I just kind of hit this mute button on my end. No one could hear it because you were speaking, and I don't know if you noticed that. But if you ever see me hit that mute button while you're talking, it's because
the
they're
chickens.
going wild. But I think it's confirmation for everything you're saying, and
Good.
I think it's so. I just think it's so wonderful that he gets
thank you.
live life this way. I mean, like that's so profound that he. Well, it's funny because you said that he will go against his intuition. Now, I still will occasionally because I'm still growing and developing my intuition, and I use it as that opportunity to see like, oh, okay, my intuition was accurate and I went against it. And I know it's also an opportunity for me to go, the universe has my back unconditionally. I can go against my intuition. They're not gonna hurt me. They're not gonna whatever. And so when I was really developing and strengthening my intuition, I would do what your kid would do. I would hear like, this thing's gonna get you sick, but I would do it anyway.
Right.
But it was like, it put me on this like incredible timeline of developing my intuition because I learned really, really quick instead of just assuming, oh, I wonder what that other path would have been like, the path that said no. And just little small things, very small things that I would, my brain would really want to do it. And I would go, but I think that he is getting all this incredible information. And like you said, from 0 to 7, he's essentially under hypnosis. Like his brain is so malleable and just absorbs all of his environment and all the information that you're throwing him. He's essentially in this dream state right now. So I think that's so cool. Can I ask you one more question?
Yeah, for sure.
This is your podcast.
Yeah, no, please.
Well, I'm just curious, and you kind of, you brought it up, but what was the biggest thing that put you on your spiritual path? What did that journey look like in the beginning for you?
Yeah. So in the beginning, it was filled with a lot of darkness. So when my husband died, he had taken his own life. And right before that, he had come to like the surface with all these truths about a week before he died. And anyone who's listened to the podcast, they have this idea, but he came up with all these truths and he was living like 2 lives. And so by the time I found out about it, there was about 10 days. And then I found him and he had taken his own life. There's so many like little pieces to it and stuff, but I had to, in that moment, be like, okay, it's up to me now. Like I have no other choice. The way I was living my life has created, without knowing kind of this, all I knew is that whatever I was doing before is sure as shit not how I'm doing anything going forward, because it had created this kind of outcome.
Oh my God. I mean, that's
so I leaned into everything and anything. And the nice part about that, as being at like kind of like a rock bottom, is that I had no ego. Like I was like, I know nothing. You just tell me what to do. So the nice part is I had so many different avenues I was going down: therapists, healers, doctors, and I would just take what resonated with me and what helped and what gave some reprieve, because I wasn't looking for a Band-Aid fix. I was looking for life changes because I wanted a different life. And
God, I mean, you are a wildly strong soul. I had to blurt that in the middle as you're talking, but go ahead. I mean,
I appreciate that.
I can't imagine.
It's an intro. It was again, those soul contracts, right? It was to learn that, but it also had this like, it made sense. Like my brain was looking for answers. And so, I eventually went down the path of reaching out to Alessandro and having a session with him, and then him talking about having me be a part of the teacher training program. And he's like, this is what you're meant to do. And I was like, what are you talking about? I was like, I'm not intuitive. I'm not psychic. That's what I remember. That's what we joked about. That's what I told him. I was like, I'm not psychic. And he's like, what are you talking about? But I was like, I'm not psychic. I don't know what this world is. I'm calling you for help. Like, what do you mean? And he's like, well, just see how it goes. And if anything, you'll learn some stuff along the way, and you're really into like evolving and healing. And if I'm wrong, I'm wrong. And I did one of the classes, and I was like, holy shit, like, this is where I'm supposed to be. Like, this makes sense. Like my whole life made sense, looking back. So through that journey, I just kept getting more information, healing and moving through. And then it was kind of nice to have Nash be at the age he was, because I had I wasn't having to like regurgitate it to him yet, where now I am, right? But I had a couple years under my belt. So that's why now it's fascinating to see like, okay, that's why I did all this legwork, because now I'm getting practice at teaching him certain things So he doesn't make those certain choices. So he knows that this happened in this stage of his life because that's not part of his journey going
And
forward.
does he ask about dad?
Yeah, he does. And he did even from the beginning. He kind of, I tell
Wow.
people like that 15-month mark, if his dad would have died probably a couple months before, I don't know that he would have even thought to ask for him, just because they're so, it's like whatever's in the moment is in the moment. They don't
Right.
know to ask for what's not there. And he was kind of at the couple month mark after that where he knew to ask for him. And so he would ask for him. And I kind of had this spiel that I would give to him. And the other fascinating thing is teaching him that even though his dad isn't physically here, that he still is here and that he still can
Whoa.
talk to
Oh my
him.
gosh.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. I mean, yeah, this whole story and this background is just, it's giving me chills, but it's just gut wrenching. But I mean, the depths of I mean, yeah, keep going.
Yeah. Yeah. But yeah,
lessons that you get that your son gets with this. I mean, it's just,
oh yeah. That's why I've been able to really root to it. And I really truly believe in this like soul contracts and this things happen because of where it's meant to teach villains, like what it's meant to teach us and where it takes us, because now that's never going to be part of Nash's story because I've now neutralized that, right? Like I've
yes,
learned from it.
yeah.
I've taken the lesson for both of us and I'm also teaching him
Woo!
in the process.
My
Yeah.
God,
So it's
you
cool.
are
And it's,
superwoman.
yeah, oh, I appreciate that.
You are.
Like
My
you
God.
said, just doing right. Like we say, people, what they see in me is just a reflection of them. It's just, I'm just going through the paces. And it honestly has been, it just felt right. Like there was no other option like this, not like, oh shit, I have to do this. It was kind of just like, okay, here we go. Like it's wake up time.
Fuck.
So it's kind of like the lights went on and life has been much more fulfilling and in soul alignment, like we talked about post this kind of trauma. So looking back at my old life, I wouldn't take that back for anything. And
Wow. Wow. Wow.
just,
Wow. 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 Yeah.
yeah. So it's just really cool. So, and
Like I just
again, a
had
long-winded way to answer it. That was
no,
the
I feel
big
like I just had a
shift.
TED talk. I'm like, wow. No, seriously, like it's like those profound stories you hear in TED talks, and
Yeah.
you have it. Like that's
Yeah.
I just had like a mini TED talk with you. I mean,
Yeah.
that's remarkable. You are
Oh,
superwoman. I
oh,
guess I guess I'm fucking superwoman. I guess I'm superwoman because, like you said, life is a reflection. It's like, oh shit,
you're
you were,
superwoman.
yeah, shit. Yeah, me and Julie Mullins. You know Julie Mullins?
Yeah. Oh my gosh. I love Julie. I miss her
Beautiful soul.
terribly.
Yeah, we'll always
Yeah.
be like complimenting each other, and I'll always say like, I must love the shit out of myself. You are just so fucking awesome. You know, 'cause we laugh because like all of life, like what you see in others is a
Yeah.
reflection of, you know, your soul.
Yeah.
And so, but you're superwoman.
Just,
I don't know.
I appreciate that. And I appreciate the question because I know, like you said, we know each other, but we're still learning about our journeys and our paths. So I
Totally.
appreciate
Yeah.
the question.
No, yeah. This was not the first time we've met.
Yeah, for sure. Right.
No,
And,
yeah.
but
Yeah.
yeah, so that's kind of like in a nutshell where that big shift happened.
Woo!
And then here we are. And it's like years. And I've told people, I remember in the beginning, I got a lot of sad eyes from people. And I remember being like, don't be sad. Like I
Really?
understand the human response of seeing, you know, a wife with her or widow with her like 15-month-old, you know, at a service, right? And just like these things that we see. And I understand on a human level that is sad, right? And then I also be like, and let's see where it is now. Cause I still sometimes will get sad looks from people. And I don't know anyone that has seen me now and been like, oh my gosh, you should go back to that person that you were before. Cause I just wasn't living my soul aligned self. I wasn't fulfilled. It's just a different, it's almost like the light switch turned on when this all happened.
Do you appreciate the empathy and the sad looks, or do you prefer just someone who just observes your situation in a neutral?
I appreciate, I think, the compassion and the understanding that it's taken a lot of work to get here.
Okay.
That understanding and that's almost like, okay, you see me, like you see, like, and there's this picture I have of, and I thought about this the other day, it's of Nash and I at the service. And it's a very sweet picture. And my sister took it. And it's one of my favorite pictures. And it's a picture that I have, and my mom has it in her bedroom. My parents have it in their bedroom. And I used to not look at it, like meaning like I didn't like put it up anywhere, which I don't have it up now, but I thought to, because then it kind of reminded me to be sad. Like it reminded me that things are different, that life is different, even though it's good. I like on a soul level, I got it. Like I get I get it all. But it was like, okay, I don't want reminders of to be sad. I got to keep moving. And it kind of piggybacks on this thing that Val and I had talked about. And she's like, there's these emotions and there's cycles, and they need to go through certain cycles, even if you know that, yes, it's good. Yes, it's getting me here. Yes, it's my soul contract and everything is aligned. You need to let the emotions cycle through. You don't have to like pull yourself into this deep, dark hole, but
Totally.
they need to run through the cycle. And there were moments where I didn't run through the cycle. Not that I was ignoring it, because I was very much so like, just give it to me. Tell me what to feel. I'm going to feel it all. But as I evolved, I had a different understanding of emotions. And I so quickly would be like, okay, this is what's happening, but it's so good for all of these reasons, that I kind of, there was little pieces, I'd say a couple years ago, where I hadn't like let the cycle play all the way through. So to go back to what I was talking about, this picture, as now it's a reminder to me of how far we've come. And it actually like brings a smile to my face.
Beautiful.
And so to answer your question about if that, I would say, because I find that when people are sad, right, and or if they feel really heavy, or I don't take offense to that, or it doesn't bother me when it's a constant, right, when they're not able to pull themselves out of that over years or time, then I'm like, okay, I'm so sad for the fact that this is yours that you're carrying. Like, this isn't now just about me. Like, this is something that you have taken on as your own. And that just is a bummer, because you don't have to live in that space. We can acknowledge the feelings and continue. So give them respect, and like, because emotions, I think, deserve attention.
Totally.
And they also they have a moment, and then they're not meant for us to like live in those spaces.
Yeah. I'll be avoiding my own sadness. And then I get to a place of like, okay, I've tried all these spiritual tools and practice. They're not working. And then I'll feel the sadness. And then within 5 minutes, I'm like, oh wait, I feel really good.
Yeah. It's like,
it's
like someone just wanting to be acknowledged. It's
acknowledged,
just,
loved.
yeah. Like, I see you.
Yeah. And it's it's a release of resistance, because if we're looking to bypass an emotional wound, you're essentially focusing on resistance. You're resisting an emotional wound, trying to push it away.
Yeah.
When we allow ourselves to feel the sadness, feel the anger, allow that stuff to come up, now we can release it. It's like, it's you're expressing gratitude for that inner hurt by feeling it and really and letting go, and then it's that it allows it to go. But I mean, that story is so powerful, and I mean, I'm grateful that I get a little preview of the TED Talk when you're on. Really, I mean, that's TED Talk stuff. I mean, that's my good. That is, I mean,
love.
Yeah,
I appreciate it.
Incredible. Where you are now and where you have come, and it's admirable. And there's so many lives that are hurt on this planet, whether they've experienced the traumatic experiences that you have, and then you've experienced the depths of trauma, and or someone just feeling it because that's their life experience, and that's just wounding that is built up within their mind. I mean, you have this firsthand experience of the overcoming, of connecting with your superwoman self that we all have within us. And I think, I mean, it's so powerful hearing your story, and that it's tied in with your kid and the lessons. I mean, I'm excited to read your book. I'm excited to go to your TED Talk.
Front row seat. Oh, well, I appreciate it. I'm just so glad we got to connect it. Like I told you when I reached out, I was like, all of a sudden you were just like I see you on Instagram, right? And we connect here and there on there, but it was just like all of a sudden I was like, okay, this just feels like time. Like this just feels like, here we go. So I'm so glad we got to talk today, and I just appreciate it. I just love jamming out with, different perspectives and similar perspectives. And I just love that connecting point. So thank you for taking the time today.
I agree. Well, thank you so much for having me. It's been awesome being on here and having this chat with you. Everything you said, I'm throwing it right back.
Oh, I love it. We're just mirroring back and forth to each other.
Exactly. Superwoman. I am Superwoman.
We're going to see you on social media. That's going to be posting like that now.
Literally. Literally. All right.
Oh, well, I appreciate it, Nicky. And I'm sure this won't be the last time we chat. But for today.
Are you in LA?
No. So there was a time period I was like talking about moving that way. I was actually the only like GLHer, like guided light healing person that lived outside. I'm in Oregon.
Okay.
So I was always doing things remotely. And then, obviously COVID was always remote, but I'm in Oregon. So I'm in a
Interesting.
little.
So a lot
Yeah.
of these, have a lot of these meetings that you met different GLH students been through Zoom or FaceTime?
Yeah, and there was a period of time when I was like really heavy, when classes were really happening. I would come to LA like once a
Cool.
month, and I
Got it.
kind of came to a couple in person. And then yeah, now more recently I come to LA here and there, but I live in Pacific City, which is like this little beach town on the coast
Sick.
uh here in Oregon. So
Yeah,
um
I did went through Oregon and
did
on my
you? Was
trip.
that a
Yes.
quick pass by?
I actually spent a good amount of time there. Kind of, I mean, I was definitely going to one spot and the next, but kind of
Yeah.
going to the different waterfalls,
Yeah.
hot springs, and
Yeah.
it really is so beautiful there.
It is. It has a lot. The fall and the winter, or I'm sorry, the fall and the summer are really, it's a really fun place to be. The spring and the winter and spring get a little crazy with rain and stuff, but still beautiful. But
Yeah,
yeah.
well, that's
But
awesome.
yeah, but I love it. But I know we'll be talking more. And I appreciate all your time.
Of course. Well, thank you
And
so much, beautiful soul. Have
thank
an awesome
you.
day.
Back to you, and get back to those chickens. I hope you
Yeah, they thought they calmed down. They were
right.
like so excited during your story. And now they put up. And then I hear my uncle going out there and my cousin trying to get them. And
That's
they're louder
hilarious.
than the chickens, which is funny. They think they're being quiet.
That's
I'm like,
right.
yeah,
There's
they're a loud
That's
bunch.
hilarious.
Yeah.
Oh, well, I'll go check on my chicken too. Being quiet, when this chicken is quiet for too long, that means something's going on. So we'll go check in and see what he's up to. It's probably on the
Give him
roof or
my
something.
love. Tell
Yeah,
him, yeah, yeah, give him my love. I know
I
we've
will.
probably met him in other lives too. So tell
Absolutely. He knows this world well. Like when I do classes or he sees someone on, he's like, "Is that Alessandro? Are you
him.
doing
Oh,
a
really?
healing class? Are you?" He repeats back like what I do. He's like, "You're an intuitive spiritual healer," and I was like, "Yeah." So he gets it. He knows he's in a different world than,
He's got it. I mean, he is just
yeah.
ahead of the curve. He signed up for a really cool journey with you.
He did. I'm really excited for what he has in store, whatever that looks like, and
Mhm.
I'm just excited to learn alongside with him. So
Yeah.
we'll see. Wish me luck.
Yeah, got this.
I got it. Well, thank you, Nikki.
Of course.
Okay, bye.
Alrighty, friend. Bye.
Thanks so much for being here. Please rate, like, share, and review so we can stay connected and continue this magical journey together.